Hi, I'm Tamara, and what you're about to hear isn't just about a launch party gone wrong. My parents took the company I built, my dream, and handed it to my brother like it was his birthright. They rewrote the guest list. They cut my name from the press. And the worst part? They smiled, like it was nothing. I stood backstage, watching him take credit for everything I created. But what really broke me, it wasn't the applause he got. It was realizing they never planned for me to shine. So I took the mic, and I told the truth. But what happened after? That, you'll have to see for yourself. I was halfway through my second coffee when I saw the article. It had landed in my inbox sometime before dawn, forwarded by an old college friend with the subject line, "Your company made TechSpark." For a brief second, my heart actually fluttered. TechSpark was big in Boulder. Getting featured meant people in the startup ecosystem were finally noticing me, noticing TechSense. I clicked the link. By the time the headline loaded, my hand had already turned cold around the coffee mug. Dillard family launches promising AI venture, led by Romy Dillard. I blinked, scanned the byline, read it again. Then I scrolled, paragraph after paragraph of polished praise. Charismatic. Visionary. A bold new voice in emotional AI. Not once did my name appear. Not as co-founder, not as developer, not as anything. It was like I didn't exist. I minimized the browser tab and pulled up the business registration I'd saved on my desktop. The name was still there. TechSense LLC, founded by Tamara with a sudden, quiet addition. Right beside mine, in equal font weight, Romy Dillard. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at it and whispered, "How long?" I called the Colorado Business Registry, played it cool. "Just verifying corporate structure updates," I said. The woman on the other end was kind, efficient. She told me the co-founder update had been submitted 3 weeks ago. Filed through my father's firm. No signature from me required. Of course not. Not when it was family. I let out a breath, long and slow. I was used to being rewritten, erased, replaced. It started in Iowa. Back when we lived in Des Moines, I was the older child, the quiet achiever, as my mom liked to call it when guests were around. But really, I was more like the invisible daughter, the one who followed the rules, the one who gave up her room at age 11 when Romy needed space to express himself. I moved downstairs next to the laundry room. No one asked. They just swapped my things while I was at school. I still remember coming home and seeing my bed shoved up against the utility sink. "Sweetie," my mom said without looking up, "you're more adaptable. Don't make it a thing." And that became the family motto. Don't make it a thing. Romy was the star. He painted on walls, hummed loudly through dinner, made up plays, and forced us to watch. When I came home with a first-place science trophy, Dad barely glanced at it. But when Romy came home with a D+ in music class and a creative note from his teacher, they bought him a new keyboard. By high school, it was clear. He was the heart. I was the hands. It wasn't just favoritism. It was institutionalized. Our family photos always had Romy in the middle. I was either cropped at the edge or missing entirely. At school, more than once, people asked if I was Romy's cousin. My mom never corrected them. When I got into University of Colorado Boulder on a partial scholarship, I was ecstatic. But my dad? He just looked over his glasses and said, "We'll have to see how that fits in with Romy's summer program in LA." I took out loans, lived in a sublet with no central heat, ate oatmeal for dinner for 2 semesters straight, built a life one spreadsheet at a time, and yet, somehow, when I built something from the ground up, when TechSense went from a late-night coding hobby to a viable beta-stage platform, it wasn't my success anymore. It was a Dillard family venture. Of course it was. The call came 2 months ago, my dad. "Sweetheart, Romy's getting good traction on social. You should think about making him more visible. He's a great communicator. You focus on the logic, he handles the optics." I had paused, then said, "You want him to be the face of the company I built?" His response? "We're all in this together." No, we weren't. I had been alone when I filed the paperwork. Alone when I begged for my first investor meeting. Alone in every cafe pitch session I booked off Craigslist leads. Alone when the first beta client ghosted me. And alone when I got the second one to say yes? Only two people ever believed in me from the start. My grandparents, Mira and Eldon. They didn't know tech, but they knew how to look you in the eye and say, "We trust your judgment." That counted for more than I realized back then. Now, sitting in my apartment in Boulder, fingers numb and a sour taste creeping up the back of my throat, I opened the link again. There it was. TechSense, the future of AI emotion, driven by Romy Dillard. A family name, a borrowed legacy, my work. The apartment buzzed with quiet, just the sound of my kettle switching off in the background and a dog barking somewhere down the street. I didn't move. My phone vibrated. A message from Mila, the same college friend. "This is so cool. When did Romy start working with you?" My reply was slow. He didn't. But maybe that wasn't the truth anymore. Maybe he was working with me, around me, over me. The worst part? I wasn't shocked. Not really. Somewhere deep down, I had always known. That room they took from me at 11 was just the first thing. This company might be the last thing they try to take, but they weren't going to get away with it. Not this time. The sun had slipped behind the flatirons, casting the city in that golden haze that only lasts 10 minutes a day. I stood in the kitchen, stirring a lukewarm cup of chamomile tea I hadn't touched in hours. I wasn't tired, just drained, like someone had taken the air out of me and left me standing half alive. That's when I found it. An old voicemail from Dad buried deep in my inbox. One of those that never transcribed right. I tapped to play it. His voice came through, crackly and casual. "Hey, kiddo. Just wanted to say, we've decided to use some of the retirement savings to help Romy with his creative launch. You understand, right? He needs visibility. He's got talent." He paused, like waiting for my nod. "Anyway, don't worry about it. You're doing fine." I stared at nothing. The spoon kept spinning on its own. Visibility? I needed groceries, a working laptop, a few months of rent to keep TechSense alive. But Romy needed visibility. I closed the audio. The silence afterward was louder than the message. It wasn't new. I used to think it was bad timing. But patterns tell the truth. Senior year, I had 3 college acceptance letters. I remember sitting in the living room, cat curled by the heater, clutching them like tickets to somewhere better. They barely looked. "Well," Dad said, tapping a pen on the armrest, "we'll see what's left after Romy's tuition." He was off to a performing arts school in Chicago. They paid for a 1-bedroom high-rise, a vocal coach, even leased him a car. I commuted to community college, took the 6:45 bus, ate from vending machines, worked evenings at a bookstore. When I transferred to CU Boulder, no one celebrated. They asked how I'd cover tuition, how many hours I could work. Still, I graduated magna cum laude. No one came to the ceremony. I wasn't angry, just exhausted. That kind of tired that settles into your bones and never leaves. A year later, my grandparents visited. We sat on the back porch, sweating through an Iowa summer. Mira slid an envelope toward me. "Just a little something to get you started." $2,000. I didn't spend it for months. I kept it sealed in a fireproof folder. That's what launched TechSense, my LLC, the domain, a freelance designer. Quiet money, no family conditions, no strings, unlike anything from Galen. A ping pulled me back. Mila again. This time a video, no caption. I clicked. Meet the creative genius behind TechSense. The thumbnail, Romy, in front of my old laptop, wearing my brand colors, talking like he built the whole thing. It was a clean 2-minute promo, Romy pitching his vision of emotional AI. He walked through the office I paid for, sat at my desk, the voiceover. "We believe in reshaping how humans interact with machines." We? At the end, he dropped my name. "Tam? She's great with back-end stuff. Makes the tech run like magic." Like I was some freelancer he brought in. I replayed it, twice. No, it wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Reframing, rewriting. The comments were worse. "Wow, he's brilliant. Didn't his sister start this? Or am I wrong?" No one corrected them. Not my parents. Especially not them. I checked our company's pinned social post. It was the same video, shared by Dad. Proud of what Romy's building with TechSense? Something inside me cracked. I closed the laptop, sat still. I thought about deleting everything. shutting it down, but Mira's voice rose up in my head, sharp and clear. You don't walk away from what you built just because someone else's name is on the door. She was right. I opened the laptop again, hovered over the report button. Didn't click. Because maybe it was time to do more than just click. I barely slept. After closing my laptop, I paced the apartment for hours. The video looped in my mind, not the words, but the audacity. His face on my work, his voice calling it ours. Eventually, I sat down and reopened the email from the conference organizers. TechSense, Disrupting Emotional AI, featured speaker Tamara 2 p.m., Denver Convention Center, Main Stage B. Or at least it had said that. By the time I arrived, everything had changed. It was cool outside, but my palms were damp as I stepped through the glass doors. Inside, coffee carts, chatter, investors in clusters. I kept my badge half hidden under my jacket. At registration, the volunteer beamed. You're with TechSense? Romy already checked in. You're listed as contributor. Need help finding your lounge? Contributor. I forced a tight smile. No, I've got it. I pulled up the event app. There it was, 2 p.m., Main Stage B. Empathy in AI, a new era of expression. Speaker, Romy Dillard. Lead Communications, TechSense. My name, at the bottom like a footnote. Research contributor, T. Wozniak. I headed backstage. The media crew looked up. You the slide editor? Someone asked, holding out a tablet. Just synced Romy's changes. His what? He turned the screen. Gone was my talk on ethical data modeling. In its place, pastel slides, buzzwords, Romy's face in full-screen confidence. Title, Feeling the Future. Romy Dillard on Intuitive AI. It felt like a punch to the ribs. I stepped away and called Dad. He answered quickly. Tamara, you at the venue? What is this? I asked. Why is he giving my keynote? Dad sighed like I was overreacting. Sweetheart, don't turn this into a scene. Romy's just better at presenting. You're great with the technical stuff. This is about optics. This is my company. No, it's the family's company, he said. Let him take the spotlight. You've always handled the back end. Always. I hung up. The backstage monitor ticked down. 4 minutes to showtime. I peeked through the curtain. Romy stood center stage, mic in place, blazer sharp and loud. He looked confident, practiced. He waved to someone up front, then flashed that polished grin. The crowd loved it. I asked the stage manager for the final slide deck. He handed me a tablet. Every bullet I'd written had been gutted, swapped with Romy's pet terms. Data feels, human synergy, future presence. Even my closing line, something I'd scribbled at 3 a.m. months ago, was now under his name. When machines understand us emotionally, we understand ourselves better. He hadn't even heard it until 2 weeks ago. The MC took the stage. Please welcome Romy Dillard. The applause came like a wave. I stayed frozen. He launched into his talk with charm and swagger, tossing out buzzwords like candy. The audience laughed, clapped. He gestured to the logo behind him, my logo, and said, This journey began because I saw a need, so I built something. I felt heat behind my eyes. I built the prototype, coded every line, conducted surveys, filed paperwork, scrimped for months while Romy chased acting gigs in Chicago. Now he stood under lights I fought to reach. A man in front of me leaned over and whispered to his colleague, Visionary guy, I'm watching his stock. He's going places. His stock? His vision? I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. This wasn't oversight. This was erasure. Not quietly, not behind the scenes, right here, in public, on the stage that was supposed to be mine. The ovation when he finished was thunderous. Cameras flashed. Romy beamed. I turned away and clenched the printed schedule in my hand until the edges dug into my skin. I didn't cry, but something inside me broke, clean, sharp, and final. And one thought echoed louder than the applause. They weren't just rewriting slides, they were rewriting me. 2 mornings had passed since the Denver conference, but the sting in my chest hadn't dulled. If anything, it had sharpened. The sting had turned into a stone, something heavy and cold sitting just beneath my ribs. I had gone to sleep restless and woken up worse. I reached for my phone out of habit, not intention, and immediately regretted it. There were over a dozen new notifications, push alerts, emails, and Slack messages from our junior devs. Most were about one thing. A headline blinked at the top of my screen. Creative mind Romy Dillard pioneers emotional AI. TechSense leads a new wave. I sat up straighter, thumb frozen mid-scroll. One after another, tech media outlets had picked up the same story. Slightly altered titles, but the same angle. Same hero, same narrative. Romy. I scrolled down the first piece, looking for any mention of me. Nothing. No co-founder bio, not even a footnote in the About section. Not a single sentence acknowledged that I had conceptualized, designed, and developed every line of our core architecture. I refreshed the next article. Same result. I sat back in my chair, phone balanced on my knee, the buzzing in my ears making it hard to hear anything else. For a moment, I wondered if I'd made all of this up. If maybe I was just background noise in my own story. The woman behind the curtain, never meant to take a bow. I closed the articles and opened Slack. Zara, my assistant, had sent a brief message. Hey, I didn't authorize this. You should see where it came from. I'm checking headers now. I called her immediately. Who sent the press kit? She didn't even greet me, just launched into it. Tam, it was your dad. The original blast went out from his firm's media email. That's why it bypassed our approval queue. It looks like he sent it directly to his media contacts. I stood up, walking toward the window like pacing would bring oxygen back into my lungs. And what exactly was in it? A branding doc, new color specs, ones we haven't signed off on, and a paragraph listing Romy as vision director of TechSense. I almost laughed. We don't have a vision director. Zara paused. I know. I ended the call without saying goodbye. I needed air. I grabbed my jacket and left the building. The late morning sun was already high over Boulder's skyline, casting hard shadows that made everything look too bright, too fake. I walked a full block before stopping at a coffee shop I hadn't visited since last year. I didn't even go in. I just stood outside, staring blankly at the menu board. I didn't want caffeine. I wanted clarity, but I got neither. Instead, my phone buzzed again. A message from Toby Renner, one of our earliest investors. Super pumped for the launch party next week. Just saw the invite. Romy hosting? Sounds slick. Attached was a screenshot of the digital invitation. Hosted by Romy Dillard. Featuring the story behind the brand special contributor, Tamara. I froze. It felt like the ground shifted under me, but no one else noticed. The woman behind me in line kept talking about almond milk. The guy beside her asked about a gluten-free muffin. The world went on like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. The event was mine. I had planned it for months, booked the venue, curated the guest list, designed the entire program around my launch roadmap. And now I was just the special contributor? Special contributor. Like I'd wandered in off the street with a few ideas and got lucky enough to be included. I walked back to the office in a trance. I didn't hear the street noise. I didn't even remember the crosswalk. I just moved, one foot in front of the other, because if I stopped, I'd start shaking. Back inside TechSense HQ, I took the elevator up alone. When I stepped out onto our floor, I made a beeline to my office, shut the door behind me, and locked it. I called my father. He picked up, voice calm, like we were discussing dinner plans. Hey Tamara, everything okay? You sent out a launch invite with Romy listed as host. A pause. Then, he's the better speaker. This is about optics, not ownership. I clenched the armrest of my chair. It's my launch. We're not replacing you, he said, just reframing the narrative. He's the face. You're the foundation. You didn't even ask me. You would have said no. He said it like a fact, not an accusation, like that justified every lie. It's still your party, sweetie, he added gently, like I was a 5-year-old sulking about a balloon. You'll be there. You'll speak. You're the brains, not the brand. Don't take it so personally. There was a long silence on my end. Too long. Then I spoke, voice low but certain. That's not reframing, Dad. That's rewriting. Another silence. I didn't wait for his reply. I ended the call. I stared at my monitor, jaw tight. The cursor blinked on a blank document labeled launch_speech_final.docs final. What a joke. I opened it, scanned line by line. Every place Romy's name had been added, I deleted it. Every anecdote he inserted, I removed. Every moment he tried to steal, I took back. One keystroke at a time, they wanted to rewrite me. But I had the final edit. By the time Friday rolled in, the countdown felt personal. 5 days to launch. 5 days until they either heard me or tried to silence me again. My edits were done. My speech was mine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some grip on the wheel. That illusion lasted less than 3 hours. My phone rang as I was reviewing logistics with Zara. The name flashing on the screen made my stomach dip. Lori Hampton, one of our largest early-stage investors, and a woman whose opinion could sway half a dozen others. I picked up, adjusting my voice into something polite but unreadable. "Lori, hi." She jumped in, cheerful as ever. "Tamara, I just wanted to say how thrilled I am for next week. I've been telling people about Romy nonstop. You've done such a great job backing him." "Backing him?" My pulse kicked up. "I'm sorry, what?" "The launch party," she said. "It'll be great to meet Romy in person. He seems brilliant. Natural charisma. Founder material." I stood up, pushing my chair back with a sharp scrape. "Lori, I'm hosting the event. It's my company." A pause. Soft, awkward, but unmistakably patronizing. "Oh, that's strange. The invite says he's the founder." It took everything in me not to snap. Instead, I smiled into the phone like she could hear it. "I'll have Zara follow up with the corrected version. Thanks for flagging that." When I ended the call, my hand was shaking. I stared at the screen until Zara's voice pulled me back. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I said. "Not even a little." Later that afternoon, Mila stopped by the office. We hadn't seen each other in months. Old college roommate turned freelance UX designer. She was in town for a client pitch and wanted to catch up. She looked around the space, impressed. "Tam, this is wild. I mean, from your apartment floor to here? Unreal." I tried to smile. "Yeah, it's been a lot." She wandered past the whiteboards. "So, you and Romy. I didn't even know you two were working together until I saw the video. Crazy how he ended up in AI, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Well, he's the idea guy, right? You're like the operations mastermind?" That was it. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, but like a small, clean thread finally giving out after years of tension. "No, Mila," I said, voice low and even. "I'm the founder. Romy didn't build this. He didn't write one line of code. He didn't pitch investors. He didn't sit in client calls or sleep under that desk during the first 2 months." She blinked, surprised. "Oh, sorry. I guess the video made it seem—" "I know what the video made it seem like." She didn't respond, just nodded, awkward and quiet, and left a few minutes later. I walked back into my office and shut the door again. And then, I rewrote everything. I pulled up the event script and stripped it clean. No Romy, no fatherly interjections. Just me, my voice, my timeline, my team. I rescheduled investor meetings and marked them as private one-on-ones. I handpicked the top 5 supporters, the ones who knew what I had built before anyone cared, and blocked an hour with each of them before the event. Then, I picked up the phone and called my mother. It went straight to voicemail. She called back 20 minutes later. I didn't wait for pleasantries. "If Dad keeps pushing this, I will go public, and this time I won't give anyone a heads up." She was silent for a beat. Then, "Tamara, do what you need to do." That answer was worse than a fight. It wasn't defiance. It was surrender. It meant she knew and chose to stay silent. After I hung up, I sent Zara the backup protocol. We had talked about this 2 months ago, half joking. Now I wasn't smiling. "Activate the contingency," I typed. "Backup domains, alternate press list, start prepping the live stream gear." She replied within 60 seconds. "Copy that. It's yours. We're ready." I exhaled, finally feeling like I wasn't alone. The sun dipped behind the mountains as I pulled into the parking lot of the launch venue for a final walkthrough. The building looked different now, less like a dream, more like a challenge. It was beautiful. Sleek industrial glass, low-lit wood accents. We'd booked it almost a year ago. Back then, it was about celebration. Now it felt like a battle line. I stood on the sidewalk and stared at the entrance for a long time. In the distance, people were laughing as they exited a nearby brewery. It reminded me of a life I used to crave. Simple. Invisible. but that version of me wouldn't have made it this far. The automatic doors whooshed open, triggered by my stillness. Inside, the space was empty, silent. I took one slow breath and whispered to myself, if they still push me aside after this, I won't be the one holding back. Evening draped itself over Boulder like a silk curtain, quiet but full of tension. I hadn't slept much the night before, and the nerves didn't ease when I arrived at the venue 3 hours early. The catering crew was setting up hors d'oeuvres near the back entrance. Zara was already inside, double-checking tech, checking off names. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Low ambient lighting, elegant floral arrangements, name tags lined up neatly in alphabetical order. Guests would walk into this event thinking they were about to witness a milestone for TechSense. They had no idea it was a battleground. I stayed in the green room for most of the hour before go time, pacing, breathing, reviewing my script again even though I knew it by heart. At exactly 6:55 p.m., the MC stepped onto the stage to a polite round of applause. His voice carried easily through the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate the extraordinary rise of a company poised to reshape AI as we know it. I stood just behind the side curtain, hands clasped tightly behind my back. The MC continued, and now please welcome Galen Dillard, proud father of our visionary leader. I froze, my breath caught. Galen? I looked around the green room. No warning, no run sheet showing that name, no slide update, nothing. But there he was, already striding up the steps onto the stage like he owned it. Right behind him, Romy in a tailored navy blazer, hair gelled back, smile confident. And then Galen spoke. This is Romy's moment, his vision, his future. TechSense was just an idea once, and Romy gave it the voice and purpose it needed. We are proud, so proud to stand behind him tonight. Applause swelled. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I started walking, fast, toward the AV table when I heard something from backstage that stopped me cold. It was Dylan, our event coordinator. I hadn't noticed him on the phone. No, we're almost done finalizing the paperwork, he said. Galen already approved the transfer. Romy will get the 51%. It's clean. Trust ownership protects them from board disputes. My feet stopped moving. The noise of the room faded. They weren't just stealing my moment. They were stealing my company. Legally. I stepped into the shadows behind the stage, heart thudding so loud it drowned the crowd. Dylan looked up and saw me. His eyes widened. Tamara. I cut him off with one sentence. Not if I speak first. And I stepped out. The light hit me like a slap, but I didn't blink. I walked straight up to the podium, past Galen, past Romy, who looked stunned for the first time in years. Someone in the audience murmured. A few cameras turned toward me, unsure of what was happening. I didn't wait for permission. I took the mic. The applause had died down. Good. They'd need silence to hear this. My name is Tamara Wozniak, I said steady, and I built TechSense from the ground up. I designed every line of the original software. I pitched the first clients from my living room table. I drained my savings account to pay for version 1, and tonight you're sitting here under false pretenses, thinking you're celebrating someone else. The room hushed. Behind me, Galen took a step forward, but I turned just enough to warn him, not now. I looked out again. A sea of confused, blinking eyes. Colleagues, investors, family friends, and Romy, standing there, looking like he couldn't decide whether to smile or run. I'm not here to fight for credit. I'm not here to beg for space. I'm here because this whole circus of narrative swapping, of names moved around like chess pieces, has gone too far. I held up one of the glossy investor packets they'd passed out near the door. On the front, Romy's face, my brand. I'm not a footnote in my own company. I'm not the quiet genius behind the curtain. I'm the founder. And I won't be erased to make someone else more palatable. A heavy silence fell. You could hear the soft click of someone putting down their champagne glass. And let's be very clear, I added, my voice growing harder. No amount of title changes or family backroom deals will change who built this, or who leads it. I set the mic down, and I walked off. Behind me, no applause, but no one left either, which meant they were listening. I was halfway to the green room when Galen caught up to me. His tone was low, almost hissing. "If you embarrass this family again like that, you'll regret it." I stopped, turned. "You should have said that," I said softly, "before you tried to erase me." And I kept walking. The launch event wasn't over, not by a long shot. But the moment they tried to write me out of my own story, that's when I took the pen back. I didn't go back into the main ballroom. After the mic drop, the air outside the curtain was thick, like walking through steam. I needed oxygen. Still gripping the folded edges of my speech in one hand, I ducked into the side lounge tucked behind the cocktail bar. Dim lighting, velvet couches, the kind of space meant for donors or VIPs to decompress. Except I didn't feel like a VIP. I sat, alone, a glass of water in front of me, untouched. Somewhere behind the wall, the party resumed. Music, laughter, the pop of a champagne cork. None of it reached me. The silence in the lounge was sharper than any applause I didn't get. Romy had vanished. I hadn't seen him once since I left the stage. No apology, no attempt, not that I expected one. The door creaked open. I looked up. Galen stepped in, followed by Judith. He was fuming, his nostrils flaring the way they did when I was 13, and asked why Romy got a new iPad when I still used a hand-me-down. "You made your point," he said, voice clipped, "but don't think there won't be consequences." I leaned back, calm on the outside. "There already were. You just didn't notice them because they happened to me." He didn't flinch. "You humiliated this family tonight," he continued, stepping closer. "You made a spectacle out of your ego." "My ego? You mean the company I built?" "No, I mean your refusal to be part of the team." I laughed, quiet and bitter. "By team, you mean the people who lie, edit, and take without asking?" "I mean family." He said it like a brand, not a bond. "I've done with this," Galen snapped. "You're out of the will, out of everything. Don't expect a call. As far as I'm concerned, you're not my daughter." The room didn't spin. It didn't shake. I didn't cry, I just sat very still. Judith was next to him, silent. Her hands clutched the strap of her purse like it could anchor her to something solid. "You really mean that?" I asked him. He nodded once. Clean. Like a man checking off a task. Then another voice entered the room. Deep, slow, familiar. "You don't speak for the whole family, Galen." My grandparents stood in the doorway, Eldon in a beige sweater vest, Mira in navy with silver buttons down the front. They looked small but unshakable. Eldon stepped forward. "Then let us say this clearly in front of witnesses. We already changed the will 3 months ago. Everything we own goes to Tamara," Mira added. "Not a cent to anyone else." Galen spun toward them. "You can't do that." "We did," Eldon replied, unblinking. "After the 3rd board meeting we weren't invited to, after the interviews where Romy spoke about his vision, after Judith called us and said Tamara was overreacting again." Mira's gaze didn't waver. "We watched, we listened, and we decided." The silence was louder than any fight. Judith looked at me then, really looked. Her expression was unreadable. I didn't fill the space. I let her sit in it. "Why did you let him erase me?" I asked. Her voice cracked. "Because I didn't know how to choose," she whispered. "And because you always figured it out. You were the one who didn't need hand-holding or reassurance or help." I waited. "And I thought," she added, tears forming, "maybe you didn't need me." I stood slowly, walked closer until I was just a few feet from her. "I didn't need you to save me," I said. "I needed you to stand next to me." Judith opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing else came. The room emptied. Galen left first, shoulders rigid, jaw tight. Judith followed, pausing only once to glance back. And then it was just me, Zara, and the echo of everything that had been said. Zara walked in silently and wrapped her arms around me. No words, just warmth. Outside, the Colorado night had turned brisk. I stepped out, breathing in the crisp air that smelled faintly of pine and earth. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest didn't crush. It anchored. We walked toward the parking lot, me and the few people who hadn't turned away. Then I saw him, Romy, standing near the valet, alone. Arms crossed, face pale, eyes locked on me. His jaw twitched. He didn't say a word. I didn't either. He wanted the spotlight, but he didn't expect the firestorm. By the time I walked through my apartment door that night, my heels ached and my mind felt raw. I dropped my bag on the entry bench, peeled off my jacket, and stood there in silence, surrounded by dim lighting and the soft hum of the fridge. I didn't need to replay everything. I'd lived it. My voice, the tremor in Romy's face, the way the audience had sat still as truth cut through pretense. I showered, slept, barely, and woke just after 6 a.m. to the buzz of my phone. 32 new emails. Most subject lines blurred together until one stopped me. Bradshaw Capital. Ultimatum enclosed. My breath stalled. I opened it. The message was short, precise. Per recent public clarity and performance, we require the immediate removal of Romy Dillard as a public-facing representative of TechSense. Should this not occur, Bradshaw Capital will suspend funding effective immediately. No hedging, no perhaps or discussion points. They weren't asking. They were drawing a line. I set the phone down slowly. The quiet of my kitchen felt like armor. 2 hours later, I walked into the TechSense boardroom in downtown Boulder. Polished glass, cool morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Zara had already set out the presentation packets and coffee. She nodded at me once, confident, assured. Across the table, the board, 4 voting members. Romy, seated at the far end, looked like he hadn't slept. His face blotchy, eyes glassy, no sign of Galen. Judith sat beside Romy, lips pursed, hands folded tightly on her lap. I stood at the head of the table, no PowerPoint, just words. "Thank you for being here," I began. "I'll be brief." I laid out the facts, the false narrative, the unauthorized press releases, the attempted power shift via trust documents. I placed a copy of the Bradshaw email in front of each board member. Then I looked them straight in the eye. You cannot build trust on illusion, and I won't let mine be traded for appearances. For a full 5 seconds, the only sound was the clock ticking. Then Board Chair Marla Sandin nodded once and said, "Motion to re-establish Tamara Wozniak as sole public and legal representative of TechSense, effective immediately." "Seconded," came another voice. "Approved," said the third. Unanimous. I sat down as the resolution was finalized. Romy didn't speak. His shoulders sagged. Judith leaned over and whispered something I couldn't hear. He didn't look up. By that afternoon, the TechSense media team had already issued the correction. Statement from founder and CEO Tamara Wozniak. It hit every major tech outlet by the evening. Forbes, TechCrunch, local stations. I didn't gloat. Instead, I answered only one interview request from a quiet podcast that championed women in leadership. I think, I told them, when people try to rewrite you out of your own story, you don't scream louder. You write clearer. Within 48 hours, Romy deleted his Twitter, then Instagram, then LinkedIn, one by one, like he was scrubbing away evidence of someone he didn't want to be anymore. Late that night, my phone lit up. Judith. I stared at the screen. I answered. There was a long pause before she spoke. "Will you come by the house sometime?" Her voice was thin. Not weak, but like someone trying to reach across a distance they'd created. I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Maybe," I said, "but not now." A soft exhale came through the line. She didn't argue. The next ping was a text from Mira. "You did it, baby, and you did it with grace." No lecture, no instructions, just love in the quietest way that mattered. I sat at my desk around 10 p.m., alone in the warm glow of my office lamp. The launch party was over. The fallout was settling. But I wasn't empty. In front of me, my laptop blinked. A new file. next_chapter_idea.docs. I hovered my fingers over the keyboard. Outside, the night air curled against the window. But inside, it felt steady. I whispered to the stillness. I didn't burn bridges. I built one, far away from them. The morning light had a different kind of warmth now, not softer exactly, just less sharp around the edges. It had been almost a month since the launch party, since the mic, the fallout, and the fractured parts of my life being laid bare under stage lights. These days, I started mornings in a co-working space across town. It wasn't glamorous. Two tall plants, humming Wi-Fi, a coffee machine that sputtered more than brewed. But it was mine. My mornings had become a ritual. I brewed peppermint tea instead of drowning in caffeine. I sat by the window, notebook open, even if the words didn't come easily. That morning I scribbled just one line. Closure doesn't mean agreement. It means I stopped bleeding. That was enough. I hadn't returned to the TechSense main office yet, not because I was afraid, but because I was busy building the version of leadership I wanted to live by. Quiet, honest, unbending. Every Sunday, I drove across town to my grandparents' place. Mira's front garden always had something blooming, no matter the season. Eldon always wore the same sweater, no matter the weather. We didn't talk about the party anymore, or Romy, or my parents. Instead, it was tomatoes and taxes, the dogwood tree out front, his old car that he swore still ran better than anything off a lot today. One afternoon after we finished lunch and Mira handed me a fresh jar of plum jam, she said, "You know, we didn't leave you the estate because of money." I looked up, surprised. She smiled, folding a napkin. "We did it because you chose dignity when you had every reason not to." I didn't say anything. I just reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Judith hadn't called since the night of the board meeting. Galen hadn't either. But I heard things. A former family friend mentioned Galen was skipping social events, didn't show at the regional gala, hadn't renewed his membership at the golf club. And Romy? He launched a podcast, then a YouTube channel. I watched one episode. The views were low, the comments were worse. He'd deleted the channel by week 3. And strangely, I didn't feel vindicated. No pride, no satisfaction. Just a sense of distance, like watching someone else's story through glass. Then one morning, my phone buzzed. Judith. Her name blinked up from an unsaved number. The message was short. "I still don't know how to be a mother to you, but I hope someday I can try." I reread it twice. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. A few weeks later, on a bright Saturday, I found myself wandering Pearl Street. The street performers were out, a violinist playing near the ice cream stand. The breeze carried the smell of coffee and something grilled. I was halfway through the block when a woman stopped me. "You're her, right?" she said, eyes lighting up. "From that AI event, the one who spoke up." I paused. "Yeah, that was me." She smiled wide. "That was brave. It meant something." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. She walked away, and I stood there, not proud, just present, whole. Back home, I opened my laptop. A blank document stared back at me. New_project_outline.docs. This one wouldn't be built on reaction. It wouldn't be about proving anything. This one was just mine. I leaned back, stretching as the light shifted across the floor. My reflection in the dark screen wasn't someone waiting for permission anymore. I had been erased, yes, but I rewrote myself. And the new version? She was quieter, stronger, still scarred, but no longer wounded. I closed the laptop and said it out loud, just once. I used to think family defined me. Now I know, I get to decide what defines me. And now that you've heard my story, from silence to speaking up, from being erased to rewriting myself, let me leave you with this. I used to think loyalty meant staying quiet, that family meant sacrificing your truth, that being strong meant not rocking the boat. But strength, real strength, is knowing when to draw a line and say, "This ends with me." If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own home, if you've ever watched your hard work become someone else's spotlight, if you've ever stayed quiet to keep the peace, even when it cost you your voice, then please hear me now. You are not selfish for wanting credit. You are not dramatic for needing boundaries, and you are never wrong for reclaiming your story, especially when others tried to write you out of it. This isn't just about business. It's about self-worth. It's about learning that your value isn't up for debate. Not by family, not by culture, not by silence. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. You don't need their permission to live fully. You just need your own. So let me ask you, have you ever been in Tamara's shoes? What would you have done at that launch party? Or better yet, what would your message be to someone still stuck in that silence? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story hit home for you. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know what part of the world or the US you're in. And if this wasn't your kind of story, that's okay too. Let me know what you think and what kinds of truths you're living through. And hey, if stories like this speak to you, if they help you feel seen or understood, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Because your voice deserves a space too. Thanks for listening.